Alexandria Rubio, Alitha Ramirez, Amory Garza, Annabelle Guadalupe Rodriguez, Eliana Cruz Torres.
There he is speaking at the NRA. He's listing off the names of the children and all the victims down in Uvalde, Texas, and that school shooting with a very ominous bell after every one. I'm not sure what that means. Is that a reference to something that I'm missing?
No, it's them trying to, as far as I know, unless you know something else.
No, it's just ringing a bell in remembrance of the person.
Yeah, so it's the NRA's fault. So they want to pretend that they care. Now, it's not a good look for them to have a convention right after the massacre, but to be fair to the NRA, it's always right after a massacre. There's a massacre every day in America. A shooting where 4 people are shot is the definition of a mass shooting. It happens literally every single day. They gotta have the convention sometime. So this massacre is way worse than the average massacre, but if they had held it a week ago, it would have been right after Buffalo. If they held it before that, it would have been after another shooting.
And we've had this conversation before. It has been right after a major one of these that's gotten national news coverage. So there is that precedent of wondering what they're going to do at their convention, but it speaks to what you're saying. Could be any day of the week, any month of the year. It's always right after something massive where people have lost their life because of guns, and the juxtaposition of the former president standing in front of the big N from NRA reading these names, and of course, these people should be remembered. It's almost like rubbing salt in the wound, though.
Yeah, I mean, at a bare minimum, it is super awkward. That weird gong. And coming from the NRA, and yes, by the way, they had a convention right after Sandy Hook as well, and they had a huge gathering internally at the NRA, and they were thinking of canceling it, and they decided as a group, no, let's go over the top, let's have the convention.
That's right, yeah.
And let's blame others. That was a literal decision that they made, okay? And that's where they came up with the line, the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. So the answer was more death. And so here again, same answer. Kids are dead, but we're going to pretend that we care by having the president read out these names awkwardly and do a gong. You don't care. You're the cause of it. So it's not tricking anyone. And why did Trump go? We told you earlier, $30 million from the NRA in 2016. And then in essence, 16.5 million in 2020, just for Trump, let alone the other Republicans. So he went to go kiss their ass, and he doesn't mind at all that those kids were dead, and he barely could pronounce their names and bothered. You think he practiced ahead of time? No way. He was too busy getting the checks soaked in blood.
We mentioned earlier that the NRA in this convention, they said that they're going to be reflecting after Uvalde. I guess that was the reflection portion, because then after that, they went back to the normal talking points. Trump continued on.
And clearly we need to make it far easier to confine the violent and mentally deranged into mental institutions. We have also, very importantly, got to deal with the problem of broken families, because no law can cure the effects of a broken home. There is no substitute for a strong mom and a great dad. But while we work to address these deep, complicated issues and deal with this scourge, all of us must unite, Republican and Democrat, in every state and at every level of government, to finally harden our schools and protect our children. What we need now is a top to bottom security overhaul at schools all across our country. Every building should have a single point of entry. There should be strong exterior fencing, metal detectors, and the use of new technology to make sure that no unauthorized individual can ever enter the school with a weapon.
So
there he goes.
So let gun ownership decide that schools should be prisons, basically. That's the goal of the NRA. It's like, it's more important to have these guns to kill our feral pigs than to have healthy schools and safe schools by getting rid of the guns. But we have to turn them into prisons. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and very dangerous prisons. And I don't mean just because of the guns. This whole insane idea that Ted Cruz and Donald Trump are pushing of a single entrance. Oh, the problem isn't the guns, the problem is the doors.
Right.
They say it with a straight face. But remember, if you only have one door you can exit from, it's a death trap if there's a fire.
Right.
So then instead of dozens of kids being killed, hundreds will be killed. It's not a real solution, and they're not going to do it. They're not going to do any of these things. They was talking about mental health. Greg Abbott, the very first thing he mentioned was mental health. Do you know where Texas ranks out of 50 states in access to mental health?
50th.
Correct, 50th. Greg Abbott has never done anything about mental health, doesn't plan to do anything about mental health. It's just a squirrel to distract you from his benefactors, the NRA and the gun lobby, that bribe him on a regular basis. They bribe Greg Abbott, Ted Cruz, Donald Trump. That's why they do these absurd speeches. They don't mean a single thing that they said.
And what about if there's a fire in a school with a single door? What happens there? I mean,
everybody dies.
Everybody dies. I mean, that's just everybody dies. They don't seem to care if everybody dies in the school, but nonetheless, I mean, you just said it, Cenk, but it's just, when you think about how illogical what their curative measures are and the places they're going with this, and broken families, there's so many of these killers you can think of. I mean, I'm thinking of one now, Dylan Klebold, who was at Columbine, who came from a fine upper middle class home, what we would consider a together family, and he went and he shot up Columbine. There are a lot of examples of that, and there are a lot of examples of the other. But to say broken families and schools that have too many doors are the reasons that this is happening is, come on, it's insulting.
Normally they do the broken family thing as a racial insult about black folks, right?
Right.
But most of the shooters are white. So in this case, I don't know what they're doing. Broken families, another squirrel, right? Okay, but there are broken families in the country, and there always will be. There's some broken families in all countries. Do they do nonstop massacres in New Zealand, or by the way, Botswana, or Jordan, or anywhere? No, they don't. They don't, even though they also have broken families. Okay, and so he says there's no substitute for a good mom or dad. Okay, fair. But what if you don't have a mom or dad? Well, then the substitute is an AR-15. Really?
Yeah.
And they say that's perfectly fine. Oh, you didn't have a dad growing up. Okay, well, here's an AR-15. Go kill anyone you like. That's the official policy of NRA.
What if your mom and dad are working 2 jobs, 3 jobs to make sure they keep a roof over their kids' heads and keep them fed because of the horrific nature of our jobs that are available to people and how we don't care about that either, or any of the help that we're trying to give to folks as people then have children. We're supposed to take care of your children, right? But get right back to work. Remember, none of these points ever coincide with each other. It's just depending on whichever talking point and lobby money that they have to live up to, they say whatever is necessary in that moment. That's why there's no specifics here. I was listening to that. Former President Trump said, harden schools. Security overhaul at schools. What does that mean? Security overhaul at schools. Which ones? Every school is different. It's set in different locations. Some schools in the middle of a major metropolis. Some are out in the middle of nowhere, like Uvalde was. They're all different, but it's just across the board, just hardened schools. They need higher fencing, bigger gate areas. Hey, one solid door, trap doors, tripwires. We keep hearing about this. And lastly, when it comes to all this, say you can across the board implement all of these different things in every school, no matter how different they all are. How much is that gonna cost? How much are these big, huge hardened doors and higher fencing and barbed wire and then one entry and then shutting off that one and putting this one in and then there's a pit? How much is that gonna cost? My wife is a teacher. My brother, when his daughter was in elementary school, he had to literally buy school supplies for the class because the teachers and the school didn't have enough money. Suddenly they have all this money for every school in America. How many schools are in America? I don't know the number, but I guarantee you, if you put in hardened security doors, tripwires, higher gates at every one of them, you don't want to do that because you don't even want to pay teachers.
Yeah, well, actually, they like defunding schools. They don't care about what the kids are learning. But security, they probably would pay for it because somebody's gonna make money off of that, one of their friends is. In fact, when they mean hardened schools, you know what they actually mean? More guns. Oh, look at that. At the NRA convention, they say that, hey, it would be great if the country bought more guns, just like the one that killed all those kids. And one more thing, and then we'll get back to the videos. It's thank God there isn't a landmine industry in this country that's donating to politicians. Because otherwise, their solution would be, oh, no, just no problem. Around the school, plant landmines. Okay, the kids might step on it too, but the kids die now. And we don't do anything about it. Like, I'm joking, but barely. Like, if there really was like an RPG industry, there'd be shoulder-fired missiles everywhere. And they would say, well, right to bear arms. Okay, the shoulder-fired missile is an arm. Landmine is an arm. It's in the Second Amendment. I got Second Amendment rights to put landmines all over the kids' baseball field. Maybe we'll put it on first, second, third base and home plate. You think, well, that's insane. What we're doing now is insane. There's 19 dead kids. One of the kids had to cover themselves in blood from their friend so that they could pretend to be dead so they wouldn't get shot. Can you imagine your 11-year-old covering herself in her best friend's blood? And we're okay with it because those politicians are getting paid.
You think she's gonna grow up and say, I had a great childhood. You know, I went to this one school and it was great. Since that was all presented there by Trump, Ted Cruz took the stage and said, I'm gonna try this here too. Let's see what he had to say.
Looking at broken families, absent fathers, declining church attendance, social media bullying, violent online content, desensitizing the act of murder in video games, chronic isolation, prescription drug and opioid abuse and their collective effects on the psyche of young Americans is both complicated and multifaceted. It's a lot easier to moralize about guns and to shriek about those you disagree with politically. But it's never been about guns.
It's never been about guns.
Well, now it should be. If it never has been, and that's what he thinks, well, now's the time that it should be.
Yeah, and of course,
he's wrong also.
It's always been about guns, and he's the one, along with all the other Republicans, that are trying to distract you from guns, so he can say that it's never about guns. He took $442,000 from the gun lobby. He's a whore. Well, that's what I mean. It was a really well-paid one, to be fair. Okay, so yes, he sells much worse than his body. He sells his soul. He sells your kids, so that he can get paid and accrue power. I mean, look at the insane things that he says. And of course, right-wingers, they have no logical abilities, right? So they're like, oh yeah, man, video games, that's probably the problem. Did they shoot him with a Madden game? No, they shot him with an AR-15. Right. You know who has tons and tons and tons of video games, including shooter games? Japan. Oh my God, Japan is loaded with video games. More probably per capita than any country in the world. You know how many shootings they have? None. Forget school shootings. They don't have any mass shootings. You know why? They have gun control. So I guess it's not the video games. How about, what did he say? Oh, declining church attendance. Okay, you know who has really declining church attendance? First of all Muslim countries, and they don't have shootings either. And you're like, oh no, I've been told by the media, oh, the Muslim world is so dark. What are you talking about? Yeah, there's terrorist activities. Yes, we bomb them. Yes, we kill them. Yes, we invade them, right? And then chaos breaks out. But if you're in a random Middle Eastern country that we didn't invade, there isn't mass shootings like this. Like people don't get it. There are no massacres like this on a regular basis in any other country. You know, the largest Muslim country is Indonesia. You probably didn't know that. And actually, you're in our audience, you probably did know that, okay? But I'm talking to the right wing. And in Indonesia, you know how many massacres they have on a regular basis? 0. You know why? Gun control. You know who else has declining church attendance? Northern Europe. In Europe, church attendance is rock bottom, okay? And how many mass shootings do they have? Nearly none. There's one in Norway, none in the UK, none in the rest of those other countries. Why? They have gun control. Everything is a lie. It's
also,
all
Canada,
about the guns.
Canada doesn't have has declining church attendance in Canada, and they have few incidences of that kind of thing. It's because I guess at the border, all those video games are kept out in Canada.
They're so bad.
So you can't get a video game into Canada, so they have no massacres. Is what it must be.
Yeah.
Declining church attendance in India and China. They both have over 1 billion people and no shootings. You know why? Gun control.
Declining church attendance from a party who's worshiping Donald Trump. Also, my last thought, broken families. There's about 1921 broken families just from the shooting down in Uvalde. There's 3-year-old siblings that are wondering where their sister or brother are gonna come home, and they're not. There's families, there's parents that lost their children, and who knows how they're gonna be, who they're gonna be after that. Those are broken families, strictly from guns and strictly from these types of shootings, and there's one every day. Every day. So let's not talk about broken families anymore and what causes them, because there's plenty. Can we get into COVID and the 1 million people that died from that? How many broken families are there?
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.